how's it going? I wanted to mention something that leans more into evidence of what I've been talking about before when it comes to paranormal, gang stalking, that sort of thing. So I would talk about that. I have a lot of interesting things I need to talk about. One piece of evidence I just found out about a particular person. This really, really leans more toward more of my evidence, among other things as well, so stick around.
And now, we interrupt, disrupt, and crash this station.
The man fighting for peace, his legacy, truth in a sea of stupid.
Filtered for your sarcastic enjoyment, Ghost Getter.
Hey, as you know, I have been, I've had a lot of interesting situations in my lifetime that I could talk to you about for many, many years. And a lot of weird situations that I could not explain to this day. For example, I think it was somewhere between 2 to 3 miles it would take me to walk to work. And on this particular day I was walking to work. It was raining cats and dogs. Long story short, I remember I was saying out loud, boy, God, I sure can use a ride right now. I'm speaking to God and saying that what I could do to use a ride or something like that. And man, it would be something if I could get a ride. I'm not sure how the wording was, but I know I was talking to God. And all of a sudden, right after I said that, this woman pulls up. And inside her car, she had crosses, Jesus stuff. I mean, it was just, her car was littered with different things, which is very uncomfortable. But the first thing she did was she drove up and she looked at me and she said, Jesus told me to give you a ride. Okay, so I did, which that's just one of the situations that I've been through in my lifetime that I thought was really odd. And we have a lot of those. Many years I have explained this and said this to people time and time again. And it just so happens I pulled out, because of what I seen the other day, I pulled out a show of mine. By the way, like, share, and subscribe. And I also got radio shows I've been doing for 10 years or better. But I pulled out a show from 2014. And in this show, I was talking about, these situations that have happened to me. I don't know what to call it, individual stalking, gang stalking, whatever it is. It has a lot to do with paranormal. It has a lot to do with familiar spirits. If you don't know what that is, that's demons that have been following you from generation to generation, family member to family member, all the way down the line. Certain ones. On one particular one I thought was interesting, which I've talked about on one of my shows. This was one of my first apartments that I've had. One of my situations was when I was a teenager up to my 20 years old, whatever, 20, 21 years old. My stupidity and my bad decision-making in my lifetime caused me to become homeless. I don't blame anyone for it because it's my decision and my mistakes I've made. And I've made that trail, that life, known that, this was my decision. It was my fault. I spent a lot of years blaming other people for leaving me on the street when I've asked for help. I've blamed people for, I've gotten very angry and when I've begged for it, people have turned me away, and I went through almost 2 years of this. But it's, I don't know what that always is. I guess the air conditioner. But anyway, I went through 2 years of this, and for a long time it took me a while to get over this. And of course, today, even to this day, I still have issues. I don't tell anybody about it, but I guess I don't call it PTSD because it doesn't deserve There are people out there that have PTSD, and I shouldn't, go that route. But I still have problems with it that bother me. I still have worries. I still have, I force myself into trying to be as successful as much as I can so I won't go back down that path. Doing the right thing as much as I can. Being very persistent, very determined as much as I can so I won't go down that path again. And I get so persistent that I even fractured my legs at work, and I kept working with it. Despite the pain and everything else, I just kept pushing on. And some things I do that is dangerous to my health, I will ignore it and keep going. And that's just, a part of me that I keep doing when I shouldn't. But that past issue I have just keeps coming up. And so I just keep going. And one day it might end up killing me because of my stupid decision making with that. I have trust issues because of it, so on and so forth. Anyway, I don't want to get into very long with that because I know you'll get to the point. But anyway, during this time when I had my first apartment, my thing about me was being persistent and determined enough, and I needed the motivation to keep me off the street, to work hard, to be persistent and not giving up. And one job I had where I got my first apartment, I've taken a lot of abuse from this job, mental abuse, called names, pushed and to no end. I've walked miles to get to work in the rain, 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever it took to do this job. I could have just went home and said, I give up, and gone to sleep. But I knew that I would wound up back on the street if I did that. So I did whatever I could to motivate myself to never give up no matter what happens. And I still do that to this day. And this was going on 20 years now. So that's how long it's been since this happened. So as I said, being persistent, whatever, I did what I could to be motivated. I kept pictures of past friends on the walls upstairs in my bedroom to look at those and know where I've been and know where I need to be, what I've lost, things like that to motivate me. But then I started having trouble in this apartment to the point where I thought someone in particular from my past was doing something deliberately to bully me, or what's the word for it, to threaten me. Not necessarily threaten me, but yeah, kind of in a way, but more of taunting me, pushing me around to drive me nuts enough to go back to that point. I wasn't going to do that. I'm too persistent, whatever it was. And I've mentioned in my show, they've broken in my house several times. I've mentioned in my show they didn't steal anything of value, but they would steal things that would let me know that they were there, like particular things that they had given me. They would steal. Do certain things to let me know that who it was. So one particular time, and I've mentioned this in 2014 in my show, and I just listened to it the other day to make sure it was in my show. I'm sitting there before I go to work. It was probably about 3 in the morning, and I noticed things that were out of the ordinary when it comes to my home, coming home, and objects would be moved, or gas stove was on, and so on and so forth. Typical things that gang stalkers do, or stalkers do. And so I was sitting at home, and I wanted to prove a point that someone was either watching me or stalking me. And before this is all technology was possible, I started to think it was more demonic, that someone was into witchcraft and was using these familiar spirits or something to that effect to tune into what I was doing, watching what I was doing, remote viewing, whatever it is, to see what I was up to watch or stalk. So I'm sitting there, and I decided to make a move to set a trap, which I've set plenty of traps over the years, and they fell into these traps, stupidly fell into these traps. I saw these game tokens that I've had from, I don't remember, Chuck E. Cheese or something like that. And I've had a whole stack of them. Never really, I thought, well, let's see if this person steals them. Not really thinking much of it. But I took these game tokens I had and I tossed them out onto the floor in my living room. And I went to work at 3 o'clock in the morning. I just tossed them out onto the floor and I thought, well, let's see if anything happens, if they're stolen, whatever. I thought they would steal them. It's funny. I thought they would steal them. Instead, they basically said, I'm not going to steal them. I'm just going to taunt you with them, so to speak. So I get home later in the afternoon, probably 1, 2 o'clock, somewhere around there, because I've always had to walk to work. Believe me, 2 o'clock in the morning. Being persistent to walk into work 2 o'clock in the morning when it's cold, raining, whatever. But I got home in the afternoon and I'd forgotten all about it. Never really thought about it. I was sitting there on my couch, my coffee table in front of me, and I'm looking at TV, and I look down and I see those game tokens. They're stacked into threes with a emerald or rock, whatever it is that, witches, psychics, whatever they use, sitting on top of the stack. Now, back then, I didn't have any knowledge of what those are, those rocks or emeralds or anything. I didn't know what that was. Today, I do know what they use them for, but back then, I didn't. Didn't think much of it, what they were. But I thought, holy hell, 3 stacks on my coffee table with this rock sitting on top of the middle stack. I said, okay, well, I had someone I knew that was into that, or used to be into that, former, that used to follow a real witch, that I never done anything like that, but someone I knew about that stuff. And I asked, before I did, I took that rock off and I threw it as far as I could out the door. And they said you shouldn't have done that because it could be used for evil reasons or reverse. And if you throw it, it could be bad for you, whatever. It's okay. God will take care of that. So I'm not worried about that. It just made me a little bit ticked off. So I thought, okay, someone that has done this was into witchcraft or something to that effect. And I thought, okay, that was an indication that 1, they were watching me, 2, they knew why I threw those on the floor, and 3, they did it to taunt me. That's the first of many, well, not the very first thing to happen. There were other things that happened before that. But that's one of many that have happened to me. One of many throughout the years. And we're talking almost 20 years. I've set traps left and right, and this particular person has always fell for them. I was dumb enough at one time by this particular person. I didn't know what remote viewing was. The similar thing happened when the movie Somewhere in Time, Christopher Reeve's similar thing he did. He would do remote viewing so he can go back in time, and it worked, whatever. That's what the movie was about. So remote viewing is when you do this meditation and you close your eyes, you can see what the people are doing. You can see places, things, objects, whatever. And if you don't know what that is, watch Project Blue Book, the 2nd season, because that's what they talk about. It's very interesting because Art Bell talked about it. The government used it. And I never really thought it worked. Never really believed it worked until I tried it. And I thought, this is stupid. But since this person was doing this stuff to me, I decided, you know what? I'm going to do something similar, and I'm going to tell them, do this, do that, stop doing this, stop doing that. I'm going to ask him a few questions and make a few comments, and that's about it. But while I was doing it, I thought in the middle of it, like, this is dumb. This is the dumbest thing a person could ever do. I don't believe in this crap. But I found out when this person had called this particular individual, I was on three-way, muted. And this particular person would say things that made no sense. It would say things to this person that was off the record or had nothing to do with the subject of what he was talking about. They would make certain comments that was way offshoot. He didn't know what, and let's just say she. I call him, I said in the show, I call it modern day Delilah. That's who this person is, Delilah. I would say that's not the real name, but that's what I'm going to say their name is. But off the record, I said I was listening, and this modern day Delilah said that I know he was in my room because I saw him. Speaking of remote viewing, he kind of was, what are you talking about? She said, I saw him, and the answer is no. And blah, 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 yes. Blah, 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 no. And it freaked me out because I was sitting there on three-way, biting my fist, not wanting to say anything because I'm like, oh my gosh, it must have worked. Because this particular person answered every question and said everything that I did or was saying. And I thought, you need to be closer to God because this is bad. This is really, really bad. And it gotten to the point, and I take responsibility for that, but not the tokens, not the people seeing this person in my house, spiritually, so on and so forth. I think this person was dealing with demonic stuff. I think maybe the occult, witchcraft, whatever the case may be, was using this to spy on me. I have no idea why this person is so angry with me. I wasn't the best person, younger, that on the planet, but there is nothing that a person can do besides, I don't know, be Charles Manson, that would make someone have so much revenge on someone that they would actually do this. Now, when I was had a relationship with this person, it's an ex of mine, I would notice strange things, but Love is Blind, and I was at the time, ignored it. I noticed a Ouija board that fell out of her closet once that was, it looked so old, it looked like the symbols were in ancient hieroglyphics and things like that. And I said, what is that? And she said, nothing. Don't worry about it, and tried to hide it. Things like that. And I thought, okay, I just ignored it. I would hear things. I've always had issues since I can remember of hearing, when things are in the room and demons that speak, and I still have problems today. I just had an issue the other day, sitting in my office here, my studio, and I was messing around with my station, and I heard someone out of my room saying, hi, like that, or something like that. And I looked out and I thought, okay, who the hell was that? And, I've always had problems, but nothing as bad as this. So I went to investigate, and I found this. And it led to the evidence of what I was talking about when it comes to this rock, stone, or emerald, that led me to believe that this was the person again that did what they did in my house with the game tokens. Tell me this isn't too coincidental. Now, something told me the other day to investigate. I don't know what it was that drew me to this. I can probably figure it out, but there are things in my life I try to answer, even years gone by. I want to know answers for certain things. So I went and investigated this person's Facebook page. And I went down to likes, dislikes, favorite places, things like that. Because I have to know what kind of person this what kind of individual this person is. I usually can tell right off what kind of a person they are. So this pops up on their page. I thought, this just proves everything that I've ever said. Everything that has ever happened to me is them. This is them. This is the person that called my house, called my work. This is the person that broke into my home. This is the person that vandalized my vehicles. This is the person that, you name it, for 20 years. This is them. This just gave me more evidence that this is that person. And I thought, I can't tell you what I'm thinking, but I'm just saying in the back of my mind, like, I got you. I got you. I got you. You sadistic nutbag. I got you. I go on their page and I'm looking up this particular individual. I can't remember her name. Alex Miles or something, that their favorite person. It's supposed to be an empath. And I've talked on my show about New Age movements and New Age people and stuff like that who don't know. New Age people can do, if they're really, really experienced, and of course this person would have 20 years or more to be experienced in this, because they used to collect crystals and stuff like that. And I always thought maybe they collected them because they liked them, because they thought it was cute. But if you have 20 years or more, probably 30 years of experience of being into witchcraft and things like that, you know what remote viewing is. You know what doing what empaths do. You know what stuff, you know what to do stuff being involved in the paranormal. You know what having a, having a spirit guide, things like that, being into stuff that's basically demonic, things of that nature, and spying on people is probably easy if you have something or some entity helping you out. So I go on this page and I look up, and sure enough, they got a store on their page that deals with the exact same stone that I found in my house on the 3 stacks of game tokens. And look at some of these stones that are clearly tells me that they are what they are. Black abstinence stone, manifesting stuff, protects against negativity, brings positive whatever. But one in particular really caught my attention about psychic stuff. Blocking psychic attacks, transmuting negativity. Let me see if I can find it real quick. That really, really got me. Enhancing intuition, which means enhancing the ability to see what others are doing, boosting psychic abilities, to see what other people are doing. There's a stone for that. And then there's this stone here, if you look on the bottom, crystals for twin flames, crystals. This person's been collecting crystals for decades, okay? Labradorite, enhancing intuition, astral travel, remote viewing, psychic abilities, and telepathic communication. I can't tell you or remember what particular stone color it was, but I can just bet that it was that stone, that particular stone. Manifesting divine soul connections. There's another one for that. Just anything that deals with divination tools, Ouija boards, psychic abilities, remote viewing, all that stuff. Empath clarity, boosting psychic abilities. There's another one. Enhancing intuition, and so on and so forth. This is the kind of thing that witches use. It's the kind of thing that people in the cult use. It's the kind of thing that people in New Age movement uses. All that stuff. Now tell me that ain't just a coincidence. That right there is not just a coincidence. You tell me that. Now, I'm not about to go down that road again, and I don't want to. But especially since recently I've been having issues again which tells me some things. But, you know, I've talked on my show about New Age movements and how dangerous it is. I've talked about some of the things that they do. I've talked about some of the things that these people in the paranormal do. I've talked about this for 10 years or more. I have shows out the yin-yang about this stuff. I've warned about it. I've warned people about how dangerous this stuff is. I've warned people about, you know, and some learned a great lesson because of it. I've even talked about doing shows again because of things like this that go on. And in the world we live in, it's getting much worse. I'm doing YouTube videos about it because I think it needs to be addressed. Because and when I started these YouTube videos, especially when I started looking into, you know, I was surprised to see that it happened to more than just me. It happened to many people, and I was very shocked. And when I started looking into YouTube about it, on YouTube and the internet, there was only maybe a couple of news stories. Now they have documentaries about it. Now they have hundreds of people that experience the same thing. And the interesting thing about it is, now I'm starting to see complaints, because there was none before, about gang stalking and empaths. Gang stalking, or being stalked by people with the individuals that have, like, people that are into New Age movement, witchcraft, use these tools, things of that nature, and how dangerous it is. And they're all connecting together, which I found very, very too coincidental, being the fact that when I started looking into this stuff, I never thought there'd be anything on it. I thought maybe it was just me that was having this issue. And then I see, oh my gosh, it's just blown up like you wouldn't believe, especially on YouTube. So yeah, so when I see things like this, it just tells me more and more, it points in that direction. So, you know, and I think now, sacrificing my own, my own situation, so people can get so that more and more can get out there and see people would understand what's going on, so people could see how dangerous this stuff is, and using this as a teaching tool out there on YouTube or wherever, as a teaching tool, if I can do more shows about it and things like that. People can see how dangerous the world has gotten and how dangerous this stuff is. And I used to think I was crazy, but now I realize it actually works, and this stuff is just not very smart as an individual, because I've had interviews with people that were New Agers and things like that are so well established or well into it. They were at the top of the list, the chain of people that were well known when it comes to this stuff. I don't know if you call them high priestess or generals or whatever, but they were people that were into the New Agers and this stuff, that would say when they got out of it or when they decided to find God, all of a sudden this stuff started to turn against them. They were being attacked. The list goes on and on. Things would happen to people that would get out of this stuff or try to get out of this stuff. It got dangerous. It got violent. They would have serious problems demonically with. The thing is, I'm wondering, was I targeted from the very beginning of meeting this person? Was I a target? Because I've had this thing going on since I was born. I've been able to notice things. I've been able to hear things. I've been able to, the list goes on. The spirit world is something that I've been targeted since day one of my life. I've had protection from God from a lot of situations where things could have gotten really bad. And I've known that I've been, maybe it's maybe it's a familiar spirit. I don't know what the thing is, but there's something there. Maybe it's a familiar spirit. Who knows? And did you know there's actual stones where you can tap into the spirit world and talk to these things? And of course, I'm sure getting information from them as well. But that's also very odd. But I wondered if I wasn't targeted since day one. In the middle of all this stuff, I will say in the end, and maybe you can answer this question because I've kind of wondered about it. There was a comment that was mentioned on the phone when I was talking about earlier about the phone call. This particular Delilah said in the phone conversation, I'm afraid of what he can do to me physically, and I'm not afraid of what he can do to me mentally or emotionally, but I am afraid of him. So what do you think that means? Leave a comment on the bottom if you think you know what that means, because I think I do. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching. I know it was long, but it is important. There's a couple of things I have later on I'm going to talk about when it comes to government, because some people say when it comes to this stuff, the government stalks people and stuff. And some things that I've experienced start to make me wonder. So anyway, thanks for everybody for watching. Until next time when I get on here, see ya. Hey everybody, don't forget to check out Reverse 96 FM on TuneIn, Streama, and now internetradio.com.